The mentorship of the professionals and experts of the different fields and investors are meeting on Türk Telekom communication ground, and of course the infrastructure and office places, and also the entrepreneurs who are giving in this pilot projects will be supported financially. Pilot makes you to fly to the entrepreneurship zones.
Distinguished guests, Türk Telekom is a sponsor, and we're going to be talking about the future of entrepreneurship from Turkey and from the world. There will be different examples of new entrepreneurs. In this session, we will be talking about the entrepreneurs both from Turkey and the world. The discussion points will be the groundbreaking enterprises of the recent period in the world and how they achieved success. Our moderator will be Kenan Bozgeyik, Chairman of the Board and Director General of PTT, Chairman of the Council of Administration of the Universal Postal Union.
Sayın Bozgeyik'in teşriflerine binaen
We also would like to invite our panelists to the floor.
biz Sayın Bozgeyik gelene kadar panelistleri
Until we wait for Mr. Kenan Bozgeyik, I also would like to invite Mr. Arun Pudur, founder and president of Pudur Corporation. Arun Pudur.
welcome. Google Kamu Politikası ve Devlet İlişkileri Müdürü
Mr. Doron Avni, Director of Public Policy and Government Relations, Google. Aslanoba Group Chairman of the Board, Mr. Hasan Aslanoba. Founder and CEO of Rafi Kebab, Mr. Hendy Setiono. Qatar Finance Center Director, Mr. Sheikha, Alanoud, Al-Thani.
It's an honor to see a woman here. Thank you very much. Moderatörümüzü bekliyoruz. Ben bir bilgi rica edebilir miyim acaba?
We are waiting for the moderator. Can we get also an information? Is Mr. Kenan Bozgeyik amongst us? Welcome. Of course, so many panels consecutively are being made. Sometimes it's not always possible to be on time. We would like to invite you to the floor, sir.
I wish you a good session. Türk Telekom sponsorluğunda birazdan girişimin yarınını konuşacağız.
We will be in the meantime talking about the future of entrepreneurship under the sponsorship of Turkish Telecom.
Sayın Bozgeyik'i
We are waiting for Mr. Bozgeyik. Is he here? Is he in the hall? He's coming, okay.
Sayın Kenan Bozgeyik hoş geldiniz.
Welcome, Mr. Kenan Bozgeyik. PTT is much faster than you. Thank you very much for being here. Yes, thank you very much. I was told that the session would be a little bit more later. It seems likely that we have gone a little bit fast. As said, in Turkey, PTT became very fast. And Turkey is going through with a faster pace at the time being. And technology is going faster. So we are following an immense speed right at the moment in the world. So we are going to complete a panel with this wonderful speed as well. And I would like to thank particularly the capital and all of the managers who have paid their efforts to make the organization so fruitful. And today in our panel, we will be talking about the future of entrepreneurship. And as you have seen, both from Turkey and from the world, very important names have been gathered. And I once again would like to welcome you all with my deepest esteems, and hopefully that this panel will be a success. So, of course, in order that we can talk about the future of entrepreneurship, we need to be talking about our dreams. Those who do not have any dreams will not have any idea about the future, and it seems likely to be that the developments without any dream cannot be possible. And we urge our young friends to run after their dreams. Those who will be initiating their entrepreneurships hopefully will have dreams that can add to the progress of the world. And now I would like to give the floor to our panelists. Yes. First and foremost, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Arun Pudur. And, of course, he has great experiences in India. He is the founder and president of Pudur Corporation. And he has managed very important projects so far. And hence, he will be giving us very valuable information. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir? Sir, can you hear me? Second channel? Yes, okay. Okay. I suppose it is working right now? My distinguished friend, the second largest software and popular software has been created by yourselves. And how did you actually compete with Microsoft? What kind of a change did you make? What kind of a gap did you fill? So what will be the trending digital future? And you're an entrepreneur, so what digital progresses do you wish the initiators to begin with and to start up with?
The translation.
Sir, can you hear me?
Uludag, how are you people doing today? Have you met your neighbors? Have you said hi to them? Say hi to them. First lesson of entrepreneurship, networking. If you don't talk to people next to you, you don't know if speaking next to a billionaire or a princess, you never know what connections you can make. Thank you, moderator, for inviting for this panel, and Rolf for putting this entire panel together. To begin with, to understand what we built, Selframe built, what I built, you have to go back to the genesis. When I was 13 years old, I began my first career. Closer. Okay. At the age of 13, I began my first career. So that's why I felt networking is very important. Because the home that we were staying, there was this guy who used to fix scooters. Now, Honda scooters, you have bikes and scooters, which typically two-wheelers, they use back in India. And I started speaking to him for no obvious reason, just to understand the business and all that. And that's when I sparked my first business. So at the age of 13, my mother was my first investor. You need to understand that if your mother doesn't believe in you, nobody else is going to believe in you. So that's the first investor. Not the banks, not anybody, family, friends and family. So I borrowed about $150 from her, and that is when I began my career. And 3 years after I began my garage, I sold it for $200,000. For a kid of 16 years old, way back in early 90s, that's big money back in India. Then, because I started my college, so I started breeding dogs. So I didn't stop my entrepreneurship, I kept moving. I started breeding dogs, selling dogs, champion breed dogs. I made a sizable amount of money over there. I paid for my own college. I got educated myself. And literally everything that I am today was what I learned when I was in the garage. Interacting with customers, sales, marketing, handling customers, accounting. You name the department, everything was handled by me. So that's where the first lesson I understood. The most important thing while dealing or creating a product or a service or a company is know what the customer wants, even before you began the product. So in 2001, when I began Cellframe, we started as in Bangalore, normal like a BPO company, call centers and all of that. That was the reach at the time. And when I was 21, I made my first million. 26, I made my first billion. So starting from 13, within 26 in 13 years, with no VCs was not even there. And the internet connection was a dial-up. The key we used to connect. Most of you know that. So you want to download even a wallpaper, whatever photo, it will take about 5 to 10 minutes. So it was a very different era when we began. So forget about VCs, forget about banks. Nobody used to trust us to give us any money. So you need to work. You need to sell. You need to network in order to make money, which may sound like, why, for millennials today, but that's how businesses are built. Most important thing. So when I began Cellframe, we understood the customer requirements, we started working on it. In 2006, when we hit the magical $1 billion turnover, I realized that most of Indians, we may be heading most of the companies in the States as well, be it Google, be it Microsoft, you have Indians running in. But the problem was we were nothing but technology laborers, guys who were exporting our brain for few pennies over the dollar. So I decided to put all my money into building the first office suite. Very similar to Microsoft Office, and the piracy levels was phenomenal. So first I started with the end. What I want to sell to whom? At what price point? You can't expect somebody earning $500 to $600 a month to pay $300 for an office suite product. It's not going to happen. So my idea was, if I'm going to fill a tank of petrol in my scooter, it's about 8 to 9 liters of petrol, that's the cost of the product I want to sell. Be it is Malaysia, be it is India, be it is Japan, anywhere in the world. So pricing, I began with the pricing. I began with how the product has to look. I knew my customer. Then I began my development of my product. Typically what happens today in startups is, oh, I have this brilliant idea, right? Let me find Arun, Pudur, or find some VC. So I have this idea, I want you to put money into me. But you have no idea how we're going to sell it, how we're going to market it, what we're going to do. So that's how we began. So the reason why Microsoft was not of a big challenge for us is because our market was very different. We were selling to people who never bought software before, who were buying pirated products. You need to understand that deep within all of us humans, we don't want to cheat. How many people want to cheat just even though you can afford to pay? It's not in our nature. We want to pay, we want to acquire a service, we are ready to pay as far as you can afford it. So we went to the basic need that people don't want to cheat. So when we address that need and saying that, let us start selling softwares for people who are using pirated products at prices of, let's say, 99 lira, or 49 lira. So when you're selling products at this price, people said, oh, yeah, I can buy it. But there are challenges when you're talking about B2C products. So we went to B2G, to the government, because we were bullied. People may think software business, technology business is all this clouds and, we are all angels roaming around. But it's a very hardcore business as well. It's very brutal. So when we were bullied by our competitors, Self-Frame, we saw who is the biggest bully, who cannot be bullied by the bully. Go to the government. So we made a very simple approach. We said, whatever you're paying right now to my competitor, just pay me 50 cents of dollar. You're paying them 100, give me 50. That's it. It's that simple aha moment. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be, whatever Elon Musk or whatever the propaganda he does. But you need to believe that human beings are just like you. Every customer, if you can give me $1, because you have $1 right now, if I come and say, hey, can I borrow 10 lira from you? You don't have a problem. So you go to a billionaire and say the same thing to him. Can I borrow $1 billion from you? He will not have a problem. Because the human emotion is the same. There is no difference. There's absolutely no difference. When I started at 13, I was getting $5 for every scooter I was fixing. Today, I go and get $5 billion check from another client. It's the same relationship. It's the same food we eat. It's the same coffee we eat. And maybe 2 times a day, you go to the toilet. It's the same thing. It's a human behavior. So there's nothing about being a genius in it. You need to access your human emotions deep within, understand, see the end first, and then work behind. We call it reverse engineering, right? Don't go and think, oh, I want to be a billionaire by tomorrow morning. That's not going to happen. I never dreamt of becoming, oh, I'm going to be a billionaire. I was nominated the youngest billionaire. I was given the top 10 worldwide, #1 in Asia. But that follows later, okay? You can't start by saying, oh, tomorrow morning I want to have a $100 billion company. It's not going to happen like that. So start from the genesis, see the end, access your human emotions, build your company first within. Build your company within. See it first, imagine it first, feel it first, and then start business. That's the reason why no company, be whoever it is a competition for you. Thank you.
Evet, çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Yes, thank you very much. And of course, dreaming is the most important thing. And you need to pay a lot of effort to actually reach to your dreams. And let me pass to the second panelist, Mr. Doron, Avni. How would you describe Google entrepreneurship? What do you think about success in entrepreneurship? How would you think that you can actually push the countries to make people more become entrepreneurship? Of course, you're the director of public policy and government relations. Maybe there are plenty of things that you might be sharing with us. The floor is yours, sir.
For having me on the panel. It's always a pleasure to be here in Turkey. So for Google, entrepreneurship is part of our DNA. We were started by 2 young entrepreneurs, Stanford students, who worked in a garage, a small garage, and then envisioned Google. And when you think about what entrepreneurship is, I think it's really hard to define. So for me, it's a lot about learning, about exploring, about daring, about inventing new things. And I don't think there's a silver bullet for being a successful entrepreneur. In fact, most entrepreneurs fail. But if I had to say, what would be a good start, I would say be fast, be focused, and be global. So it's really important, first of all, to be fast, to put your product or service in the hands of users, even if it's not perfect, and then get their feedback, release and iterate, release and iterate. And we see that, innovation cycles are getting shorter and shorter. At Google, we like to bring together many developers for 48 hours hackathons. These are events where they all work together for 48 hours. They don't get much sleep. They eat a lot of pizza. And at the end of 48 hours, they have a prototype in their hands. And I'm really always fascinated about this, the ability to have in 48 hours to design something new. And I think this is really important. Also, another thing that helps you to scale really quickly is the cloud. 15 years ago, we didn't have the cloud. Today, you can move from 100 users to 1 million users in 24 hours, as long as you're on one of the cloud platforms. The second most important thing is to be focused. And we learned this ourselves at Google. So at Google we have a mission, and it's been the same mission for 20 years, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And if you think about this, this mission cuts across everything we do. Search is all about this, of course, but YouTube organizes all the videos around the world. Google Maps organizes all the geographical data around the world. And Google Photos organizes the photos of your loved ones and make them accessible for you. So it's really important to be focused. And I think technology also helps us to be focused. So today, for a young entrepreneur, you don't need an office. The office is your laptop. Everything is in the cloud, so you can really be focused on the idea. The idea is what matters. And this also goes to really cutting-edge technology. So an entrepreneur in Turkey can nowadays really easily access the cloud and access artificial intelligence on Google Cloud, the same artificial intelligence that a Google developer, a Google engineer, is using inside Google. And I think that's extraordinary. And the third thing I would say is to be global. If in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when you started a new startup, you were really focused on the local market. Today we see that new startups go global. So for them the market is a global market. In a way you can think about them as kind of micro multinationals. And when you go global, it's really important to innovate for everyone. This is what we're trying to do. And at Google, when we look at a new product and we think, how would that work? We often use the toothbrush test. Now you might be puzzled thinking, what does a toothbrush has to do with entrepreneurship? So everything. Because what you want to achieve is that your product will reach hundreds of millions of people that will use it on a daily basis, like they use a toothbrush, ideally twice a day. So if you're fast, if you're focused, and if you're global, that's a good start. Now, when you look at Turkey and any other ecosystem of entrepreneurship, I think you should look at different building blocks. So I will go through several of them. One, I think, which is critical, is financial capital. You need, as an entrepreneur, you need access to financing. This can be from angel investors, from venture capital, from the state, grants and loans. But this is really a really important component. We've seen that the Turkish government has really made good progress here. So, for example, the fund of funds that the government has set up, I think, is a really good idea. But there's more to be done. The second part, which is really important, I think, is STEM education. So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are really the building blocks of every healthy entrepreneurship environment. And we at Google are trying to do our best to contribute there. So last year, we collaborated with the Ministry of Education, and together we set up an ICT curriculum. So every sixth grade student across Turkey can now enjoy this ICT curriculum and learn coding skills. And we're also training, Google is training the teachers across Turkey. And we aim to get to 2 million students in 2 years. So I'm really excited about that. And the two last components which I'll mention is first networking. And I agree with my colleague here. Networking is key, so do say hello to the person sitting next to you. And I think networking is not just entrepreneurs with other entrepreneurs, it's also entrepreneurs with multinationals, entrepreneurs with the government. This networking creates magic. This, is the stuff that makes up dreams. And the last part, I think, which is really critical, is the regulatory ecosystem. So it's really important that every government set up a regulatory environment that is really in line with international best practices. So just to give you a few examples, it's critical that entrepreneurs anywhere in the world will have easy access to the cloud. So for example, a regulation that demands data localization and cannot allow an entrepreneur to go to a cloud operated by an international operator will hinder innovation. Privacy is also very dear to our heart. Privacy is everything. It's the trust of your user. Without the trust of your user, you have nothing. So you need really strong safeguards for privacy. But at the same time, you need to find ways in order to allow innovation, to allow startups to use data. Without data, there's no machine learning. Without machine learning, it's really hard to create artificial intelligence. And I would also use this opportunity to say that it's really important to also allow for some groundbreaking innovation within the regulatory framework. So think autonomous cars, you know. Autonomous cars will really change the landscape, but in order to test autonomous cars, we need a regulation that will allow this. I think Turkey is doing really good progress on all fronts that I mentioned, but there's still way to go.
Evet. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Avni. Without losing our time, I would like to continue. Of course, when we say Google, asking everything to Google is a habit nowadays. So it is becoming very hard to interact. When we're speaking here, they are checking it from mobile phones. What is Google is telling about it? It is making our life a little bit harder when it is easing our life. So Google needs to think something for this habit. Hasan Bey, Hasanova, Aslanoba Group, CEO. In Turkey and all around the world, angel investors, what type of projects are being founded and what type of fields are being interesting? We don't have SDC type of investments in Turkey, so when are we going to see that leaping action? So your opinions are very crucial. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me. I would like to say hello to everyone. I hope that it will be a fruitful panel session. Let me start from your second question. In Turkey, we are at the growth stage with the investments. Actually, for the Serial A and Serial B type of investments are not so high in numbers. They are going to take the Serial A, Serial B type of investments later on. And like many other topics, there are different movements in Turkey when we consider the global picture. The place that we need to be is far beyond us right now. When we look at the contribution of Turkey is $800 million to the global income, and $80 trillion is the global income. And so we do only have 1% of a contribution to the world income. When we look at the startup projects, we do have 15 times less contribution than we should have with our startup projects. When we look at the $150 billion of investments, if you take 1%, it is $1.5 billion of an amount which you need to take from startup projects. Who is taking the first place? United States, India, and Israel. Even Europe is in the very middle. China and United States are being the pioneering groups in such kind of projects. There is one point here. As I have told you, there are some cultural problems. Not taking any risks and not making use of the opportunities is present because the feature really embedded in startup projects. All of the future economies will be focusing on that. They are carrying on a huge potential. In Turkey, because of the spatial conditions, in the recent years, in order to provide some foreign resources, we did not find any opportunity. We do have a capital coming from the Middle East regions, but from the big players, from United States, from Far East, from Europe, we don't see a lot of foreign investors and so foreign capitals. When we look at the internal dynamics, we do have the old decision makers and they do not understand the new trends in the economy. And all of the funds, corporate entrepreneurship funds are not present and investments in this field are not taking place. So we do have a gap. And there is another circulation which has not started. We don't have enough internet riches in our country. And such kind of investors are being named as smart money. They understand the digital economy and they earn their money from that business and they understand the value and paying it back, investing it back. So we don't have the internet riches yet. They are not beyond 3 or 5. That circulation has not started yet. In Turkey, I'm not crediting myself, but there is a vague situation. after the exit from Erikli, but after 2012, I have started to examine everything very closely. In the second half of 2012, I have examined it very closely, and I have seen that there is a very low level of investment. In 2012, 2013, and 14, the total investments, 38% has been done by myself. And everybody was very much surprised. You see, crazy, why is he investing this much? They have reacted. Even my friends reacted me, and they called me, are you nuts? I was doing something very right. Because of the Turkey's condition, we were having a very little amount of investment, and all of a sudden, my investment have gained a great importance when we look at the ratio. Actually, this was not, of course, it should have been by the BCs and or the corporate capital investors should have started, or the internet riches should have started these investments. But on the internet side, something interesting has just appeared. When we look at the present situation, I can speak a little bit more optimistic. By 2017 and 2016, the impact of my investment have lessened. And I have completed my budget. I have almost completed my budget. In 2017, $100 million of an investment arrived for startups. And I don't have any more impact. BC funds have been implemented, some angel investors have started to appear, so some things have started to circulate, and all of the seeds that we have planted now transformed into trees. Cereal B's, cereal C's have started to appear, and they will continue to come. Very clearly, I can say that 2018 will be further than 2017, those small companies now grown up, and in the near future, we will be having, maybe you have heard Insider, market automation field. It's a worldwide successful global company. And they have taken investment from Sequoia, one of the biggest BCCs of the world. And this was my first investment as the serial A investor. This was the first entrepreneurship project I have entered. There are a lot of other startup projects which have come to a certain level. And the understanding should change. The decision makers need to be educated, trained, because this is a different game to be played. When you look at the startups, they are being misperceived, misunderstood. They seem to be the smaller versions of the big companies. They do have different DNA. They do have different structures and different claims and different commitments. When we speak about technology, of course, what is coming to our mind is being inventors, being creators. But you are taking a model and you are scaling it. This is what we are actually doing. And many other misunderstandings are needs to be amended, needs to be corrected. On the corporate side, for example, there is a misunderstanding. By doing their digital transformation, they believe that they will be able to protect themselves from this big wave, from this disruptive technologies are awaiting us in front of our doors. Blockchain technology is as much important as internet, and we will be seeing that huge impacts. We have started to feel the artificial intelligence impact. And the companies are being late in investing, and many times they are playing innovation theater. Very simple competitions are being organized internally. They are starting in-house entrepreneurships, and they are entitling different people, and they are wasting time. In-house, they should carry on. They should show attempts for the digital transformation, but this will not be enough to protect them. In the future, all of the needs, all of the traditional companies will be disrupted. And today's companies will be disrupted by the technological companies. Technological companies will be taking their place. There will be three types of companies. One of them will be the technology giants, Google and Amazon. In the second place, there will be some startup projects which are going to push them on the vertical line. And I'm calling them as the brain power companies. On the third side, we do have muscle powered companies. Industry 4.0 followers, traditional type of companies with cost effective solutions, they are able to survive. They will be dealing with the low value-added projects which are not being taken into consideration by the first and the second group. You will be having shop, you will be having planes, you will be having car fillets, but of course you're always having the technology companies in front of us. It doesn't matter whether you have fleets or not. The values that you will create as a third level, you will not be earning a lot. The muscle and the mind-powered companies will be taking the big share from the pie. I'm always telling the administrators, the executors, you are believing in something but in wrong things. The companies may not change, the institutions may not change. Startup projects do have the spacemen's DNAs. You cannot transform the human beings into space creatures, so they will continue to survive, but it will only extend their life, so they may be more protected according to their traditional comrades, but only thing is investing to the startups. The only way to the exit is investing to the startups. There's only a single method, and you will be establishing your own corporate enterprise capitals, funds, and you will be investing them. So from these funds, you will be funding the startup projects. There is no other example that I can give you globally. There is no a big technological giant coming from a traditional company. 270 unicorn companies are present, which is beyond $1 billion. They have not been open to the public yet. Their value is over $1 billion. Let me give an example. They all do have the alien DNAs, and from VC funds they have grown up, and they do have $1 trillion of values. Beyond $1 trillion values, $200 billion has just entered to these 270 companies, and they do have more than $1 trillion value. They all do have the alien DNAs. They are not coming from the traditional companies. Do not misunderstand. Startups, they are just playing a game. We know this game. They are playing what we were playing. They are also doing the commercial activities. We know this. They are playing football. They are playing football, but they are playing the alien football. They do have a high level of commitment, and in a short period of time, they do have the high level of creating potential. And the corporate executives are being late. They are only just losing time without doing any investment. They are taking very big risks. This is this much important. The future belongs to the startups. Thank you very much. You are telling a lot of important things. We do have some limited time. Because of that, I need to stop you. Now I would like to pass the floor to Hendy. Mr. Hendy, the floor is yours. You are taking the most important feature of Turkish cuisine, and you have created a worldwide brand. How have you established Baba Rafi Kebab? Would you please tell us what have you do as an entrepreneur? It is very hard to move and to develop in the field of food. What type of difficulties have you faced? And for the new entrepreneurs, what recommendations you may give? The floor is yours.
My name is Hendy Setiono. I came from Indonesia. So a little bit background of the company that I run. I'm in food and beverages business. One of my company is actually a kebab chain. We're running a kebab business since 2003. So a little bit background of myself. I'm not from a business background, not from a business family. My dad, he works in oil and gas company, so he's purely professional. I myself didn't study in business background, so we're first generation business owner. The idea itself came when I visited Middle East. First I visited Qatar, and I also visit Turkey and see a lot of kebab shops and got the inspiration and the idea to do my own kebab business back in Indonesia. So during my age of 19, I started selling kebab with a capital of $400 US. I still remember that at that time I opened my first kiosk selling kebab with only one employee. And we're fortunate that from the first outlet was doing very well. We're able to grow the second outlet, third outlet, and so on. And now we're fortunate that we are able to open more than 1,300 shops in 9 different countries. So that idea came when inspiration itself, the aha moment itself came when I visited Middle East, saw a lot of kebab shops, including in Turkey, and modified a bit and tried to do our own version of kebab selling back in Indonesia. Well, now since the young generations, they love the idea of being entrepreneur. Entrepreneur itself, it becomes a lifestyle. So every time I give a speech, I give a seminar in several universities in Indonesia and abroad, most of them, when they graduate, they would like to be an entrepreneur. Like when I came to this summit, this event, I meet several university students as well, and they also mentioned that they are willing to become an entrepreneur after they graduate. Actually, they can start during their university study, become a young entrepreneur, and then build a network that somehow it will be useful for them in the future, because it becomes an eye-opener. Example, in Indonesia, there's this startup called Grab and Gojek, which is the motorcycle version of Uber, where they're not just a transportation startup, where previously when we want to use a public transportation, we have to stop any taxi or public transportation on the street. But nowadays, by using only smartphones, they can pick up us in front of our doors. And we're utilizing that technology to as well do the food delivery. So without have to, we collaborate with these startups to do our kebab food delivery. So while our customer, they're like, they're hungry, they want to eat some kebabs, they can order through this GoFood channel that utilizing their collaboration of digital to order our meal, and we can deliver in front of their doors. So that idea came up, and we're fortunate that franchising is also one key to our business expansion. From the single outlet that we began, the first 2 years we just opened organically by having our own stores. But then we decided to grow faster, so we used the franchise model as our part of a growth system, and we're fortunate again that it became a national brand in Indonesia, and somehow we found the correct partner for other countries in Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, and not just in Asia. We opened as well in Bangladesh, China, and even in Netherlands. So that become Rafi. If we type in Wikipedia, it mentioned as the world's biggest kebab chain now.
Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, if you combine the kebab of Antep and baklava, maybe we can come up with a better model. Right now, we will continue with Miss Sheikha. Sheikha Alanoud Al-Thani is coming from the Qatar Finance Center. She is the business development director, and she has many expertise in many different fields. And with your permission, I would like to ask her, since you have different actually entrepreneurships in Qatar, what do you think the new entrepreneurs should follow as a pathway in the new term other than QFC? I will ask another question. In the future, what do you think companies should invest, and in which fields will be the rising star of the future? The floor is yours.
Söz sizin.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'd like to thank the organizers, especially Mr. Rauf, for extending this invitation. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted also to share my limited experience with entrepreneurship. I started as an entrepreneur coming out of university, winning a capital seed fund from the University of London Union, and I can proudly say that my first business failed miserably, and I gave up for a few months, and then I realized that in today's competitive world, a successful entrepreneur is someone who can take any idea, product, or service, no matter how unrealistic it is, or how unrealistic it may seem to others, and possess the will, skill set, and really the tenacity to take extreme risks and allow this idea to be crystallized by introducing it into the market. Now, this is the determined entrepreneur, and this is what today's world looks for. One who can dream of the unreal, work relentlessly to convert it into a reality. Now, apart from that, successful entrepreneurship also involves confidence and self-motivation. And instead of following the complacent norm of maintaining the status quo, entrepreneurs are encouraged today to stretch well beyond the traditionally established industry rules and indulge in newer thinking and initiatives, and this is where innovation comes into play. Now, while challenges are inevitable in any professional journey, entrepreneurs should be willing to fail and start over again. An entrepreneur should consistently motivate himself by internalizing the life lessons through the years to create something new, improved, and more beneficial. And to be innovative, you have to unlearn. You have to reassess and create bespoke outfits to serve the present day requirements. Now, certain factors need to be taken into or be kept in mind consistently while running your venture in today's competitive world. And some of the pointers or the roadmap for successful entrepreneurship, for me personally, are you need to sharpen your critical business and leadership skills. You need to maintain a positive frame of mind at all times. Networking is key, as many of the speakers here have tapped into. You need to foster innovation. I own businesses in the food and beverage, and it's very difficult to stay competitive in the market because there are new concepts that come out every day. So it's a matter of always adding new items to the menu, but also looking at what your competitors are doing, especially in the services sector. You need to embrace new technologies and avenues of marketing. You need to be passionate. You need to be persistent. I definitely use mentors to stand by me or sit on my board to advise me, as opposed to utilizing, professional services and really expensive consultants. And I encourage everyone to utilize the peer-to-peer learning platforms, whether they are social media, Facebook, or even Google, to learn about other experiences outside of your own local market. Now, there are also pitfalls that you need to avoid while running any enterprise, and those are you need to set up the right company. You need employees who are as motivated and who believe in your business idea as yourself, and this is where really hiring innovative thinkers is really important. Another one is to really seek mentors, utilize them, avoid expensive consultants, as I touched on before, and never to be rigid with your ideas. I mean, my first business failed because I was, the business plan, I had to follow it concretely, and then I realized that, no, it's not wrong to change your business plan, to evolve it, and to adapt it to be successful. And always document and maintain your reports, and this basically can help guide you if there are any gaps in your business moving forward. Now, about the future markets that businesses can tap into, I can talk from my perspective, from Qatar's perspective. There are a lot of investments in Qatar right now in line with the World Cup 2022, in line with the National Vision 2030, and the market might seem small because the country is small, but it's large in numbers. There's a $200 billion market in Qatar that any entrepreneur can tap into. And in line with the strategy of the country to diversify its economy, there are a lot of laws that are coming out, including the private-public law. Qatar Financial Center, where I work in, we continuously make sure that the regulatory framework is friendly to entrepreneurs, but also to businesses in general. We act as a springboard for Qatari businesses that are looking to go global because of our international court system, because of our ownership, licensing, and regulatory framework, because of our ease of paying taxes infrastructure. And we see a lot of interest as well, not just from Turkey, but globally, of companies wanting to utilize this platform to grow, but to also benefit from the double taxation agreements that we have with 60-plus countries. Establishing in Qatar, under the Qatar Financial Center, you are treated as a Qatar company, but with 100% foreign ownership, which means you don't need a local sponsor or a partner. However, it's not wrong to have a partner, but we allow you to choose the percentage of ownership when you establish your company. So there are a lot of ways where businesses can grow, and from a local perspective, the opportunities are vast. They range from construction to technology to the sports, the health, the education, in line with moving towards a knowledge-based economy. So I encourage you to talk to me after this and to look into what opportunities are available because of our onshore capabilities as well. Any company doing business in Qatar can utilize it, as I said, as a springboard to access emerging markets nearby, such as Iran, Pakistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Turkey as well, and then benefit out of all the value propositions. And we see startups growing through our platform because of all the points that my fellow panelists have touched upon, and these are the ease of doing business, international standards that allow businesses to grow, to succeed, and we've seen a lot of startups becoming, small to medium enterprises and accessing global markets. And this is what entrepreneurship should look like, because you can also see the other side of the story in Qatar, where there are a lot of entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, who use home-based businesses and technology to sell products. But it's very limited in terms of its value added to the economy and in terms of what they add to themselves, because they can never grow by just focusing on the local market. So I think that's it from me.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sheikha, as the other panelists touched upon very important topics, I would like to thank her once again. Well, as the Turkish economy, we have lots of collaborations and cooperations in Qatar. We have lots of big projects, and we are collaborating in those projects. And as the postal services, we are also collaborating with them, and we actually involved in this process, and we actually knew that maybe we will be losing money in that process in collaboration. And we actually bought certain machines which were a wreck at that time, and for the postal services. And we have spoken with our young engineers, and our young engineers, first of all, actually cracked the software of those machines, and then they actually created the most important and cutting-edge cargo delivery machines. And hopefully, in a successful manner, we will be able to complete those projects to even further with the support of our entrepreneurs. We have a time limitation, and I really would like to ask from our panelists, you have 2 minutes. You have to wrap up, and you have to say your last words. You have 2 minutes, and I would like to give the floor to Pudur. The floor is yours.
I would like to just touch base on the future technologies, what is that you can expect. As all my panelists mentioned about, everybody coming out of college has this dream of becoming an entrepreneur, but the pain they don't want to go through. So let me give you a shortcut, what are the opportunities that is available, which can make you Mark Zuckerberg, without any hard work, within maybe 1 or 2 years. So there are several technologies that you can focus on, 3D being one of the most evolving one. Then you have artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain. It's a big, long shaft. But I'll just take one example of just 3D alone. So now with 3D printing, you can, when you buy a printer, it now costs about $6,000 to $7,000. You can actually build a home, 1,000 square feet home in about 3 to 4 days time for just $4,000 US. You can build your own car within 3 days time with about $4,000 to $5,000. So imagine this, the disruption already is here. So if you're thinking about home building alone, the construction industry is a major disruption. If people start building their own homes, people start building their own cars, what's going to happen to the automobile industry? What's going to happen to the companies that are connected to automobile industries? What is going to happen to the companies that are connected to the construction industry? Same thing is happening with blockchain, with banking sector. Governments, excluding defense, everything else what the government is doing with blockchain you can implement. It's not just Bitcoin, Forex alone. It's a massive subject. So there are several technologies which are available right now, which are disrupting as we speak. And each of these technologies will become small clusters. So, with no offense to our colleagues over here, companies like Google, Facebook, they're very centralized. Even though they do have the tagline, say, do no evil, but when they have companies which connects to the data, they have no control. What happened to Facebook, it just blew up in front of everybody. So privacy problems exist. No matter how good you are, right? Privacy problems exist. Google has problems, banks have problems, government has problems, Facebook has problems. So people are becoming more and more privacy concerned. So I'm seeing an evolving of what we call as smaller internets. What presently they call it as dark webs, but it's going to become smaller and smaller cluster community-based internets which will be safeguarded, encrypted, connected to the main internet. So the future is something like that. cost of getting into these businesses is going to be very limited. You don't need to rely on the big boys to do all the businesses. That's what we are doing. I'm selling cloud solutions very similar to Google Docs or Office 365, but just a $50 Android machine. Put it in your home, and you have a cloud system, and you don't have to depend on anybody else. Your data is with you. You have the security of your own data. So ideas like this are evolving. So privacy is very important. Focus on 3D. Focus on emerging technologies like blockchain. See your industries. Do not sit quiet. If you sit quiet, you'll be unemployed in 5 years' time. Thank you.
Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Avni, the floor is yours.
Importance of education, because I think education is key here. And for us at Google Turkey, this is where we're putting most of our efforts, because we believe that we can help entrepreneurs and the society here to really transform to the digital age faster. I mentioned one program earlier. I want to mention another one, which we're very proud of, which is the Digital Italia, which we've been running for 2 years now. And we've approached and we reached 1 million people in Turkey alone, offline and online, and taught them with digital skills. So these are entrepreneurs, SMBs, job seekers, who come and learn how to become more efficient in the online world, how to market, how to analyze data, even basic artificial intelligence. And the reason this is so important, because research shows us that an SMB which is online is 3 times more successful than an SMB that doesn't have online presence. So this is key. Another program that we're doing that really worked well, and we're looking also into exporting it to other markets around the world, is the Google Android Academy, where we took 600 applications, chose a group of 60 developers, and provided them with both entrepreneurial skills and also Android coding skills. So at the end of 3 months, they can actually code Android apps. And we've seen tremendous success there. The 12 finalists will be going to Silicon Valley in a couple of weeks to really understand the ecosystem and immerse themselves in it. So we see a lot of potential here. But on a more personal note, I must say that when I meet entrepreneurs in Turkey, also today when I watched the Turkish entrepreneurs speech at Stars of the Region, and I see the energy, the drive, the vision, this is when I truly believe that the future of entrepreneurship in Turkey is bright.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hasan, the floor is yours.
Değerlendirme. Evet, 5-10 seneye bak.
Well, when we take a look to the last 5 or 10 years, the most important technological developments started with the dissemination of the cloud technologies, and the mobility started to become a fact of our lives. These were quite important because they tackled the logistic problems of the technology. So that technology started to reach to everyone, from a small village in India to a city in China. The problem of distribution of the technology has been solved with this mobility. And then the artificial intelligence was another field in which the highest advancements took place. The artificial intelligence required us software to be much more smarter and smarter. And because in the past the software were operating if it stands do that. And this actually required us to define each teeny tiny scenarios, and which was impossible. And then the digital data increased, and the processing power of the machines increased, and this actually provided us possibility. By making use of the statistic techniques, machine learning actually developed. For example, you can upload the educational information and the machine started to learn, for example, the recognition of the sound and recognition of the data processing. And the main fuel for that is the digitalization of the whole data. So what we can expect is that all of the software should be actually embellished with the artificial intelligence. As we try to digest this, a revolution is actually taking place, although we are not all feeling the impacts of it. And we are only hearing that Bitcoin is a reality, but there is an underlying technology which is very important, and this is the blockchain technology. And blockchain technology will lead the rules of the internet to be written once again. It is so much disruptive. Maybe in terms of scaling up, we still have some bottlenecks, but think about the 1993 internet connection. So these are the first prototypes, and their impacts in the future will definitely increase. On the blockchain side, we can say that blockchain is not a decentralized autonomous organization. They have a claim of governance, by the way. They are right now governing the protocols, but in the future they will not only be governing the protocols, but they will start governing different things. So as a result, the governance will be changing from its root. So we should keep an eye on the blockchain issues. Thank you so much. Hendy, the floor is yours.
There's 3 points I would like to share. First is about the give back. So learn, earn, and return. The more we learn, the more we earn, the more we return and give back to community. And that comes back again, we learn again, we earn again, and we return. So one thing about entrepreneurship is the social impact that happens in terms of opening a job opportunity. Entrepreneurship is one key solution for developed countries such as Indonesia in terms of creating a new job opportunity. I myself started a very humble beginning with 1 outlet and 1 employees, and now we have employed more than 3,000 employees by having our kebab chain through franchise model nationally and internationally. And second thing, I would like to also address the idea of dream big, having the mindset to go global. The key to go global is becomes an entrepreneur ego to bring the brand globally, and that myself also become my ego to become an entrepreneur that also have a global business. Finding the correct partner is one key, so we can collaborate. So the power of collaboration is one success key factor to bring the business globally. So the idea of having kebab and baklava together, I would love to explore that in more detail.
Okay.
And of course, last thing is there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Last words, Miss Sheikha. The last words goes to woman.
You have to say based on your question. I want to talk about some of the future strategic plans that we're working on in Qatar through the Qatar Financial Center to basically enable businesses to grow and to tap into other markets that they never thought of. In partnership with the Istanbul International Finance City, which is in establishment phase, we're talking to other governments and close by countries to Qatar about really creating mutually recognized financial centers. And by that, I mean that any business that establishes itself in any of those centers can access markets all the way from Asia to the Middle East to Africa to Europe. So this is where entrepreneurs can really utilize, the business enabling platforms to allow them to grow in an environment where it's allowing them to grow, basically, and not hindering them because of really harsh regulations and bureaucracy. That's one point. 2 is that we've recently launched the TESMU Technology Fund, which amounts to $6 billion US. And that fund is basically going to be utilized to invest into startups and into any type of businesses in that spectrum, focusing on, tapping into tenders in the state of Qatar. And recently we've launched an investment club structure under the QFC to really allow investors globally to put funds together in an unregulated sphere and to basically fund those startups and enable them from a capital sourcing perspective. So if you are interested, if you have a lot of money and you don't know where to invest it in, talk to me, check our website, and I'll be more than happy to basically help connect you as well. I'm sorry, I come from a business development background, so all I do is sell, sell, sell. So that's another point. And lastly, I think with entrepreneurship, it's not always the entrepreneur's fault on why they fail. There are a lot of, risks and issues that governments, private sector, the educational institutions should definitely look into and make it easier for entrepreneurship, for entrepreneurs to succeed. I know in Qatar and in many other Arab countries that rely heavily on oil and gas are now moving towards the private sector and building it up. And the only way to do it is to really invest in the private sector. And that starts with entrepreneurship, whether it's social or otherwise. If I have time, do I? I'd like to talk about my experience with refugee camps and how entrepreneurship really enabled refugees who basically live in jurisdictions where they're not legally allowed to do formal work. So through my previous job in Silatek, I was responsible to put programs, innovative programs together to enable basically refugees to create jobs for themselves and then also co-create jobs for their fellow entrepreneurs. And a very simple story is a $6 fund, which is nothing. It's basically a breakfast, a cost of a breakfast meal that we spend. And it was basically teaching a woman how to use a hairstyling machine. And she started going around to homes, styling hairs, and then she had to grow. And it empowers women, refugees, because we realized that they're more responsible with the money we give them. I'm sorry to my male counterparts, but that's statistically proven. And basically, they were able to create jobs so there are a lot of ways where entrepreneurship could be utilized to solve a lot of our social issues and make it more inclusive. Thank you.
Peki.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Sheikha. Since she is the lady, we gave her the last words and we actually allowed her to speak even more. And I would like to thank all of our panelists separately. I also would like to thank to our audience. Once again, I also would like to thank Capital magazine and also to Rauf Bey, the head of our organization. I also would like to thank to our translators, interpreters, and I also would like to thank to our audience for listening to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presence here. It was an honor to have you here. Thanks for your valuable contribution. It's very precious to us. Thank you very much. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists, distinguished participants. You can follow our summit from US application. From the application, you can also make your evaluations and send to us.
Panellerimizin sonunda Stars of the
We will be having Stars of Region Award ceremony in the end of our panel sessions.